The rain came down in sheets, turning the alley behind the grocery store into a river of refuse and regret. I pressed myself against the brick wall, my breath coming in sharp, painful gasps that misted in the cold November air. My hands trembled as I clutched the phone I'd just powered off, knowing Marcus could track it, knowing he was already looking for me. 3 broken ribs. A fractured wrist that throbbed with every heartbeat, bruises that painted my brown skin in shades of purple and black, hidden beneath the oversized hoodie I'd grabbed on my way out. The rain plastered my box braids to my face, and I tasted blood from where my lip had split when his fist connected with my mouth 6 hours ago. I'd finally done it. After 2 years of promises to change, of apologies followed by violence, of isolation from everyone who'd tried to help me, I'd walked out. Not run, walked, because running would have woken him from his whiskey-induced sleep. Walked with nothing but my phone, the clothes on my back, and the $43 in cash I'd been hiding in a tampon box for the past 3 months. The shelter downtown was full. The one on the east side didn't answer their phone. My best friend Keisha had moved to Atlanta 6 months ago, one of the many relationships Marcus had systematically destroyed. My mother, bless her, was in a nursing home with dementia. Wouldn't even recognize me if I showed up. I had nowhere to go, no one to call. Nothing but this alley and the knowledge that when Marcus woke up and found me gone, he would tear the city apart looking for me. "You think you can leave me?" His voice echoed in my memory, the same words he'd said the last time I'd tried. The same words that had preceded the worst beating of my life. "You think anyone else wants you? You're nothing without me, Naomi. Nothing." I'd almost believed him, almost let those words burrow so deep into my soul that they became truth. But then this morning, when he'd wrapped his hands around my throat and squeezed until black spots danced across my vision, something inside me had broken free. Survival instinct, maybe. Or just the final realization that if I stayed, he would eventually kill me. A car turned into the alley, its headlights cutting through the rain like searchlights. I shrank back against the wall, my heart hammering so hard I thought my ribs might crack further. The black Mercedes moved slowly, deliberately, as if searching for something, or someone. Marcus drove a black Escalade. This wasn't him, but that didn't mean it wasn't someone he'd sent. The car stopped 20 feet from where I hid in the shadows. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. He held an umbrella, impervious to the downpour that soaked me to the bone. "You can come out," he said, his voice carrying clearly despite the rain. Deep, with an accent I couldn't quite place, European maybe. "I'm not going to hurt you." I didn't move. Couldn't move. Every instinct screamed danger, but a different kind than I was used to. Marcus was explosive, chaotic violence. This man radiated controlled menace, the kind that came from knowing exactly how much damage he could inflict and choosing when to unleash it. "My name is Dmitry Volkov," he continued, taking a step closer. The light from the street lamp caught his face, sharp cheekbones, ice blue eyes, a thin scar running from his left eyebrow to his hairline. "I own the restaurant you're hiding behind. My security cameras picked you up an hour ago." Of course there were cameras. I'd been too panicked to think about that. "I'm calling the police," I managed. My voice hoarse from screaming earlier, from Marcus's hands on my throat. "No, you're not." Not a threat, just a statement of fact. Because if you were going to call the police, you would have done it already. Which means whoever you're hiding from is either connected enough that the police won't help, or you have reasons for not trusting them. Both, actually. Marcus's cousin was a detective. His brother worked in the DA's office. The one time I'd tried to file a report, it had mysteriously disappeared from the system. "Please," I whispered, the words scraping past my damaged throat. "Just let me go." "Go where?" He took another step, close enough now that I could see the concern in those cold eyes. "You're injured. You're soaked. You have nowhere to run." He tilted his head slightly. "Who are you hiding from?" The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. I could lie, make up some story, but something about the way he asked, the lack of judgment in his voice, made the truth tumble out. My ex. He doesn't handle rejection well. A muscle ticked in Dimitri's jaw. How badly did he hurt you? Does it matter? I tried to sound defiant, but it came out broken. Yes. The single word carried such conviction that I looked up, meeting his gaze fully for the first time. What I saw there made my breath catch. Rage, barely contained, but not directed at me. It matters very much. Why? I challenged. Why do you care? He was quiet for a moment, rain drumming against his umbrella. I have a sister, he said finally. Had. Her husband put her in the ground 5 years ago. His eyes hardened to chips of ice. I was too late to save her. I'm not too late for you. The sincerity in his voice shattered something inside me. I slid down the wall, my legs finally giving out, and wrapped my arms around my knees. The sob that escaped me was ugly, raw, months of suppressed fear and pain forcing their way out. I didn't hear him move, but suddenly he was crouched beside me, the umbrella angled to shield us both from the rain. He didn't touch me, just waited, his presence somehow both threatening and comforting. His name is Marcus Williams, I heard myself saying. We were together for 2 years. He started small, criticizing my hair, my clothes, my friends, then isolating me. Then, I touched my swollen lip. Then this, and worse. Where does he live? The question was casual, but something in his tone made me look up sharply. Why? Because I'm going to make sure he never touches you again. It wasn't a boast. It was a promise, delivered with the certainty of a man who had the power to keep it. You don't know him, I said. He's connected. His family. I don't care if his family is the royal bloodline, Dimitri interrupted, his voice dropping to something dangerous. No man puts his hands on a woman. Not in my city. Not while I'm breathing. Your city? Despite everything, I almost laughed. What are you, some kind of crime lord? His smile was cold. Something like that. The implications of that statement should have terrified me. Should have sent me running despite my injuries. Despite having nowhere to go. But all I felt was a strange sense of relief. Marcus knew people, had connections, used them to keep me trapped. Maybe, just maybe, Dimitri knew worse people. I have a safe house, he said, reading my thoughts with unnerving accuracy. Fully secured. Medical care available. You can stay there while we figure out your next steps. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. I know enough. He finally extended his hand, palm up, an offering rather than a demand. I know you're brave enough to leave, strong enough to survive, smart enough to hide rather than run blind into the night. His eyes met mine. I know you deserve better than living in fear. I stared at his hand, pale against the darkness of the alley. This was insane, going with a stranger who'd just admitted to being a criminal, trading one dangerous man for another. Except Dimitri hadn't hurt me. Hadn't touched me without permission. Hadn't looked at me with that possessive hunger that Marcus always had, even in the beginning. He looked at me like I was a person, not a possession. If I go with you, I said slowly, and I don't like it, I can leave. Anytime you want, though I'd prefer you didn't leave in the middle of the night without proper security. A hint of dry humor entered his voice. Bad things happen to people alone in the dark. I took his hand. His grip was firm but careful, aware of my injuries as he helped me to my feet. I swayed slightly, exhaustion and pain catching up with me, and he steadied me with a hand on my elbow. Can you walk to the car? I nodded, not trusting my voice. Each step was agony, my ribs screaming protest, but I made it to the Mercedes. He opened the passenger door, waiting patiently while I maneuvered myself inside, then closed it gently before rounding to the driver's side. The interior was warm, leather seats heated, classical music playing softly from the speakers. Such a contrast to Marcus's car, which always smelled like cigarettes and stale beer. The radio blasting whatever sports talk show he was obsessed with. Dimitri pulled out of the alley, navigating the rain-slicked streets with practiced ease. There's a blanket in the back seat, he said, and water bottles in the center console. I grabbed the blanket, a soft cashmere throw that probably cost more than my monthly salary had been, before Marcus made me quit my job at the library. I wrapped it around myself, shivering violently as warmth finally penetrated my cold-soaked skin. "The safe house is 20 minutes away," he continued. "I'm sending a message to my personal physician. She'll meet us there to examine you. I can't pay for a doctor. I'm not asking you to." He glanced at me briefly before returning his attention to the road. "Consider it part of the security package." "Why are you really doing this?" I asked, needing to understand. "You said you had a sister, but that can't be the only reason." He was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. "Then, my father used to beat my mother. Every night, sometimes. She never left. Kept making excuses. Kept believing he would change." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "She died when I was 15. Heart attack, they said. But I knew the truth. He'd broken her so completely that her body just gave up. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be alive." His eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. "Be angry. Be determined. Be anything but another woman who lets a man destroy her." The fierceness in his voice sparked something in me, a ember of the person I used to be, before Marcus systematically crushed my spirit. I'd been working on my master's degree in library science. I'd had friends, hobbies, dreams. I'd been Naomi Jefferson, not just Marcus's girlfriend, Marcus's punching bag, Marcus's prisoner. "I want to be alive," I whispered. "I want to be more than this." "You will be." It wasn't comfort. It was conviction. I promise you that. The safe house turned out to be a penthouse apartment in one of the city's most exclusive buildings. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the skyline, the rain creating rivers of light down the glass. The furniture was modern and expensive, but the space felt strangely impersonal, as if no one actually lived there. "The bedroom is through there," Dimitri said, gesturing to a hallway. "Bathroom is fully stocked. There are clothes in the closet, various sizes. Find something comfortable." I hesitated in the doorway to the living room, suddenly overwhelmed. This was real. I'd actually left. I was in a stranger's apartment, dependent on his protection, his resources, his goodwill. "Naomi." His voice was gentle. "You're safe here. I give you my word." "And what's the word of a crime lord worth?" I asked, not quite joking. "Everything." No hesitation. "My word is all I have in my business. Break it once and I'm dead. So when I tell you that you're under my protection, that no one will harm you while you're in my care, believe it." I did. God help me, I did. The doctor arrived 30 minutes later, a severe-looking woman in her 50s, who introduced herself as Dr. Petrova, and asked no questions about how I'd gotten my injuries. She examined me with efficient gentleness, confirming the 3 broken ribs, the fractured wrist, and adding a concussion to the list. "You need rest," she said in accented English. "Lots of it. I'm leaving pain medication, but be careful with the dosage." She glanced at Dimitri, who'd remained in the room, his presence somehow making me feel safer rather than exposed. "She's lucky. Another inch to the left with those ribs, and we'd be talking about a punctured lung." "Thank you, Elena," Dimitri said. "Send me the bill." After she left, he showed me how to work the security system. "The cameras cover every entrance," he explained, pulling up feeds on a tablet. "There are panic buttons in every room, here, here, and here." He pointed to discrete red buttons I'd thought were part of the modern design. "Press 1, and my men will be here in under 3 minutes." "Your men?" "I don't do this alone, Naomi. I have people, good people, who understand what it means to protect someone." He set the tablet aside. "Tomorrow you'll meet Alexei. He'll be your primary security. Former Spetsnaz, utterly professional, and has 3 daughters of his own. You'll be safe with him." The level of protection he was offering was overwhelming. "I don't understand. You're doing all this for a complete stranger." "You're not a stranger anymore." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Get some rest. We'll talk more in the morning about next steps." "Wait." I stood, ignoring the protest from my ribs. "What happens to Marcus?" Something dark and cold crossed Dimitri's face. "What would you like to happen to him?" The question hung heavy in the air. I thought about Marcus, about the 2 years of torture, the systematic destruction of everything I'd been. I thought about his hands on my throat, the certainty in his eyes that he owned me, that he could do whatever he wanted without consequences. I want him to know what it feels like, I said softly. To be helpless, to be afraid, to have someone stronger take everything from him. Dmitri nodded slowly. Then that's what will happen. I won't kill him, he added, seeing my expression. Death is too easy, too quick, but I will make sure he understands that you are untouchable, that coming near you means consequences he can't imagine. How? Better you don't know the details. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Plausible deniability. But trust me when I say that by this time tomorrow, Marcus Williams will be more afraid of you than you've ever been of him. After he left, I stood in the middle of the penthouse, wrapped in clothes that weren't mine, protected by a man I barely knew. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt something other than fear. I felt hope. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows in momentary panic when I didn't recognize my surroundings. Then memory flooded back. The alley, Dmitri, the promise of protection. I sat up carefully, my ribs screaming protest, and found a bottle of water and my pain medication on the nightstand, along with a note in strong, angular handwriting. Good morning. Breakfast is in the kitchen whenever you're ready. Alexei will introduce himself at 10 a.m. You're safe. D. The simplicity of that last statement made my throat tight. When was the last time I'd felt safe? Before Marcus, certainly. Maybe not even then, growing up in neighborhoods where violence was ambient noise, where safety was relative at best. I showered carefully, avoiding the worst of my bruises, and dressed in the clothes I'd found in the closet last night. Soft leggings and an oversized sweater, both in blacks and grays, both fitting surprisingly well. Someone had stocked this place with intention, with care. The kitchen was a chef's dream, all marble counters and high-end appliances. I found fresh fruit, pastries from a bakery I recognized as outrageously expensive, and a French press with coffee that smelled like heaven. As I ate, I caught sight of my reflection in the darkened window. My brown skin still showed the evidence of Marcus's violence, my lips swollen, a bruise darkening my cheekbone. But my eyes, they looked different. Still afraid, but with something else underneath. Determination, maybe, or just the stubborn refusal to be broken. At precisely 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. I froze, old panic rising, until I remembered the security system, the cameras, the promise that I was safe here. I checked the tablet Dmitri had left, saw a mountain of a man standing in the hallway, hands clasped in front of him in a relaxed but ready stance. I opened the door. Ms. Jefferson, he said in a voice that carried the weight of gravel and old wars. I am Alexei Sokolov. Mr. Volkov has assigned me to your security detail. He was massive, easily 6'5", with a shaved head and a scar that ran from his left ear to his jaw. The kind of man who should have terrified me, but his eyes, pale blue like Dmitri's, held nothing but professional courtesy. Just Naomi. Please, I said, stepping back to let him in. He nodded, moving into the apartment with surprising grace for someone his size. I will explain the security protocols. Then, if you are comfortable, we will discuss your situation and how best to proceed. Over the next hour, Alexei laid out a plan with military precision. He would be with me whenever I left the apartment, along with at least one other guard. The building itself was already secure. Dmitri owned it, every resident carefully vetted. But if Marcus somehow found this location, there were contingencies, safe routes, backup locations, a whole network of protection I'd never imagined existed. Mr. Volkov takes protection very seriously, Alexei said, when I expressed disbelief at the level of security, especially for those under his personal guarantee. Why? I asked. Why does he care so much? Alexei's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Because he knows what it means to be powerless, to want to protect someone and fail. He leaned forward slightly. His sister Katya, she was like you, trapped with a violent man. By the time Dmitri found out how bad it was too late. He buried her on a Tuesday. He swore on her grave that he would never be too late again. The story hit differently, hearing it from someone else. Not just Dimitri's personal tragedy, but a mission, a purpose that drove everything he did. He's not a good man, Alexei continued carefully. His business, the things he does, they are not legal. They are not always moral. But in protecting women like you, he is righteous, he is uncompromising, and he is very, very effective. What about Marcus? I asked. Dimitri said, It is already handled. Alexei's voice carried grim satisfaction. As we speak, Mr. Williams is learning that certain actions have consequences. My phone, the one I'd powered off in the alley, sat on the counter where I'd left it. I hadn't turned it on, afraid of what I'd find, afraid Marcus would be able to track it, to find me. You can turn it on, Alexei said, following my gaze. Mr. Volkov's people have rerouted all tracking capabilities. If someone tries to locate you through it, they will get a signal from downtown library. With shaking hands, I powered on the phone. Immediately, it exploded with notifications. Texts, voicemails, missed calls, all from Marcus. I scrolled through them, my stomach churning. The early messages were what I expected. Anger, threats, promises of what he'd do when he found me. You stupid bitch. You think you can just leave? I'm going to find you, and when I do, you'll regret ever being born. Your friend Keisha is going to tell me where you are. Everyone talks eventually. But then, around 4 a.m., the tone changed. Who the fuck are those guys? What did you do? What did you do? Make them stop. Please, Naomi, make them stop. The last message, sent at 6:47 a.m., was just, I understand. I won't come near you again. I swear. I looked up at Alexei, my heart pounding. What did Dimitri do? I was not there, he said diplomatically. But I believe Mr. Williams received a visit. During this visit, he was shown documentation of every injury you sustained, every hospital visit you hid, every police report that mysteriously disappeared. Alexei's smile was cold. He was also shown documentation of his family's less legal activities, information that, if released, would be very damaging. Blackmail. Leverage, Alexei corrected. Along with a very clear demonstration that Mr. Volkov has resources Mr. Williams cannot match, reach he cannot escape, and absolutely no hesitation about using both if Williams comes near you again. I should have felt guilty. Should have worried about the implications, the potential violence, the moral complexity of fighting abuse with intimidation. I felt relief. He'll leave me alone now? I asked, needing confirmation. He will leave you alone, Alexei said with absolute certainty. Or he will disappear. Those were the terms Mr. Volkov offered. Williams chose wisely. The door opened, and Dimitri walked in, dressed in another impeccable suit, this one charcoal gray. His eyes went immediately to me, assessing, checking for signs of distress. Good morning, he said. I see you've met Alexei. He's been explaining the security arrangements. I held up my phone, and I saw Marcus's messages. Ah. Dimitri set down the leather briefcase he'd been carrying. Yes, he and I had a conversation last night, a very enlightening one. Thank you, I said, the words inadequate for what he'd done. For everything. He waved it off. It's handled. Now we focus on your future. He opened the briefcase, pulling out folders. I've had my lawyer draw up several options. Restraining orders through judges who actually enforce them. Documentation of Williams' family connections to ensure the police take your case seriously if he violates the order. And, he pulled out another document, a civil suit for the damages he caused. I stared at the papers, overwhelmed. I can't afford a lawyer. You're not paying for one. I am. He set the documents on the counter. Williams has money, family money. You're entitled to compensation for what he put you through. My lawyer will handle everything. Why? The question burst out of me. Why are you doing all this? The apartment, the security, the lawyers, everything. What do you want from me? Dimitri was quiet for a moment. his pale eyes studying me with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable but somehow wasn't. "Nothing," he said finally. "I want nothing from you, Naomi. No repayment, no debt, no obligation. That's not how the world works. It's how my world works. When I give my protection, it comes with no strings." He moved closer, but stopped a respectful distance away. "You've spent 2 years with a man who used his power to control you. I'm using my power to free you. That's the difference. But you barely know me." "I know enough." His voice softened. "I know you're a librarian who loved her job until Williams made you quit. I know you were 2 semesters away from your master's degree. I know you have a mother in Shady Oaks nursing home who you visit every Sunday, or did before Williams isolated you." He saw my shock and smiled slightly. "I do my research. I wanted to understand who I was protecting. The fact that he'd looked into me should have been creepy. Instead, it felt careful, thorough, like he wanted to understand what I'd lost so he could help me reclaim it." "What if I want to go back to school?" I asked, testing him. "Finish my degree? Then you go back to school. Tuition paid, security in place, your life yours again. What if I want to leave the city? Start over somewhere new? Then I help you relocate, set you up, make sure Williams can't follow. What if—" I hesitated, then pushed forward. "What if I want to stay here? In this city, near my mother, rebuilding the life Marcus took from me?" Dimitri's expression shifted, something warm breaking through the cold control. "Then you stay, with my protection, my resources, and my promise that you'll never have to be afraid again." "Why do I trust you?" I whispered. "I just met you. You're a criminal. By all logic, I should be terrified. But you're not. Not a question." "No," I met his eyes. "I'm not, and I don't understand why." He considered this, then gestured to the couch. "May I sit? This might take a moment to explain." We settled on opposite ends of the sofa, that careful distance maintained. Alexei had quietly withdrawn to the kitchen, giving us privacy while remaining close enough to intervene if needed. "After my sister died," Dimitri began, "I went looking for her husband. Found him in a bar, drunk, celebrating his freedom." His voice went flat, emotionless. "I beat him until he couldn't walk. Put him in the hospital for 3 months. And when he got out, I made sure everyone knew what he'd done, what kind of man he was. He couldn't work, couldn't live in this city. Last I heard, he drank himself to death in some town up north." He looked at me, gauging my reaction. "I tell you this so you understand. I am not a good man, Naomi. I've hurt people. I've done things that would horrify you. But I have rules, lines I don't cross, and one of those lines is violence against women." "So this is redemption?" I asked. "Saving me makes up for whatever else you do?" "No." The word was firm. "Nothing makes up for what I do. But perhaps, if I can prevent what happened to Katya from happening to someone else, perhaps that means her death wasn't entirely meaningless." The raw honesty in his voice cracked something in my chest. I'd spent 2 years with a man who lied constantly, who manipulated truth into whatever shape served him. Dimitri's brutal honesty was like cold water after wandering in the desert. "I want to see my mother," I said suddenly. "It's been 6 weeks since my last visit. Marcus wouldn't let me go, said she wouldn't remember me anyway. So what was the point?" "Then we go see her." Dimitri stood, already pulling out his phone. "I'll have the car ready in 30 minutes. Alexei will coordinate security." "Just like that?" "Just like that." He paused at the door. "Your life is yours again, Naomi. All of it. The sooner you start living it, the sooner Williams's power over you disappears completely." The nursing home was exactly as I remembered it. That particular smell of antiseptic and old age. The the too bright lighting, the gentle sounds of lives winding down. Dmitri waited in the car while Alexei accompanied me inside, his presence causing several double takes from staff and residents alike. My mother was in the common room, sitting by the window, staring out at nothing. At 68, she looked ancient, dementia and a hard life aging her beyond her years. Her dark skin, so like mine, seemed paper-thin now, her once strong hands frail and trembling. "Hi, Mama," I said softly, sitting beside her. She turned, her eyes taking a moment to focus. Then, miraculously, she smiled. "Baby girl, you came." Relief flooded through me. A good day, then. She knew me. "I'm sorry it's been so long," I said, taking her hand. "Things have been complicated." "That boy treating you right?" she asked, her grip surprisingly strong. "The one who comes around sometimes?" Marcus had visited her once, early in our relationship, all charm and promises. "He's gone, Mama. I left him." "Good." The clarity in her voice was startling. "Never liked him. Too smooth. Men that smooth are hiding something ugly underneath." I laughed, the sound catching in my throat. "You were right. You were always right." We sat together for an hour, sometimes talking, sometimes silent. She drifted in and out of clarity, sometimes calling me by my name, sometimes by her sister's name, once by her own mother's. But she held my hand the whole time, that grip never loosening, as if she knew I needed the anchor. When I finally stood to leave, she caught my arm. "You look different, baby, lighter somehow." "I feel lighter," I admitted. "That's good. That's real good." She smiled, already drifting back into wherever she went when dementia pulled her under. "You come back soon, you hear?" "I will, Mama. I promise." Dmitri was waiting outside the car when I emerged, Alexei having gone ahead to check the perimeter. He took one look at my face, tear-stained but smiling, and handed me a handkerchief without comment. "Thank you," I said, dabbing at my eyes. "For bringing me here, for everything." "How is she?" "Confused, but she knew me. She knew I left Marcus." I laughed wetly. Told me she never liked him. Said he was too smooth. Smart woman. We drove back in comfortable silence, the city passing by outside the tinted windows. I watched people going about their lives, free to move, to choose, to exist without fear. That would be me soon, I realized. That was already me. "I want to go back to school," I said suddenly. "Finish my degree. Maybe work with women who are in situations like I was. Help them find resources. Find freedom." Dmitri glanced at me, something like pride in his expression. "Then that's what you'll do. I'll have my assistant contact the university, get you re-enrolled for the spring semester." "Just like that?" "Just like that." He pulled up to the building, putting the car in park but not moving to get out. "Naomi, I need you to understand something. The protection I'm offering, the resources, they're not temporary. They're not contingent on you staying nearby or maintaining contact or owing me anything. They're yours. Period." "For how long?" "As long as you need them, or want them." His pale eyes met mine. "If tomorrow you decide you want to move to Alaska and never speak to me again, I'll help you get there and ensure you're safe. If you decide to stay, rebuild here, we can arrange that too. Your choice. Always your choice." The emphasis on choice, on agency, on autonomy, made my throat tight. "What if," I started, then stopped, uncertain. "What if what?" "What if I want to know you?" The words rushed out. "Not as my protector or the man who saved me. Just as Dmitri. Is that allowed?" Something shifted in his expression, vulnerability flashing across his usually controlled features. "That would depend." "On what?" on whether you understand what you're asking. I told you I'm not a good man, Naomi. That wasn't false modesty. I've done things that would horrify you. My business, it's not always pretty. And the people in my world, they're dangerous. So I trade one dangerous man for another? I challenged. No. The word was firm. Because I would never harm you. Never control you. Never take away your choices. He turned to face me fully. But I also can't promise that my world won't touch yours. There are risks in knowing me beyond what I've already offered. I should have been scared. Should have taken the out he was offering, accepted the protection and resources while maintaining distance from the man himself. I'm tired of being scared, I said instead. I'm tired of letting fear make my decisions. For 2 years, I let Marcus's potential violence control every choice I made. I'm done with that. This is different. Is it? I interrupted. You've shown me nothing but respect. You've given me choices, resources, freedom. You've kept me safe without making me a prisoner. I met his gaze steadily. I want to know the man who did that, if you're willing to be known. Dimitri was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. Not the cold, controlled expression he usually wore, but something genuine and warm. I'd like that, he said softly. Very much. The weeks that followed established a routine that felt both foreign and right. I re-enrolled at the university for the spring semester, focusing on the classes I needed to complete my master's degree. Alexei accompanied me everywhere, a silent, massive presence that caused gossip among my classmates, but made me feel safe enough to focus on my studies. Dimitri visited the penthouse regularly, sometimes for brief check-ins, sometimes for longer conversations over dinner. He never overstepped, never assumed intimacy, but slowly, carefully, we built something that felt like friendship, maybe more than friendship. He told me about his business, carefully editing the worst details but honest about the nature of his work. Import-export, he said, with connections to people who operated outside the law, protection services for those who couldn't go to the police, resolution of disputes that the legal system wouldn't touch. You're describing organized crime, I said one evening over dinner, 3 weeks into my new life. I'm describing survival in a world where the rules don't apply equally to everyone. He swirled wine in his glass. The people I help, they can't call the police when they're being extorted by other criminals. They can't go to court when contracts made in the shadows are broken, so they come to me. And you enforce the rules. I maintain order. His eyes met mine. Sometimes that requires violence. I won't lie to you about that, but the violence is targeted, proportional, and always a last resort. Unless it's someone like Marcus. Unless it's someone who hurts women. His voice went cold. Then my proportionality looks different. I should have been disturbed by the casual way he discussed violence. Instead, I found myself feeling safer, understanding that the danger he represented was never directed at me, but at those who would harm me. Marcus kept his distance. I'd seen him once, from Dimitri's car, crossing the street near campus. He'd looked diminished somehow, moving with the furtive quickness of prey rather than the swaggering confidence of a predator. When he'd glanced up, and our eyes met through the tinted window, I'd seen fear flash across his face before he hurried away. He's terrified, I'd said to Dimitri. Good. Fear keeps him alive. If he stops being afraid, if he thinks he can try again, then fear won't be enough anymore. The implications of that statement were clear. As long as Marcus stayed away, he lived. The moment he didn't, Dimitri would remove the problem permanently. My mother's condition declined rapidly that month. The nursing home called me at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, their voices gentle as they explained that she'd had a stroke, that I should come quickly. Dimitri drove me himself, pushing speed limits, one hand gripping mine as I cried in the passenger seat. She was unconscious when we arrived, her breathing shallow and labored. I sat beside her bed, holding her hand, whispering memories, and love and goodbye. Dmitri waited outside, giving me privacy but close enough that I felt his presence, his support. When she finally slipped away as dawn painted the sky pink, he was there immediately, his arms opening without hesitation to catch me as I broke. He held me while I sobbed, his hand stroking my braids, his voice murmuring words in Russian that I didn't understand but felt in my bones. Comfort, safety, the promise that I wasn't alone. "I'm sorry," he said, when my tears finally subsided. "I know what it's like to lose someone you love." "She was all I had left," I whispered against his chest. "My whole family. Gone." "No." He pulled back just enough to meet my eyes, his hands cupping my face with infinite gentleness. "You have people who care about you. You have me if you want me." The intensity in his gaze stole my breath. This was different from friendship, from protection, from gratitude. This was something deeper, more dangerous, more real. "Dmitri, you don't have to say anything," he interrupted gently. "I just need you to know that you're not alone, that whatever you need, whatever you want, I'm here." I kissed him. It wasn't planned, wasn't thought through, just a desperate need for connection, for life, for something other than grief. He froze for a heartbeat, then responded with a gentleness that made my chest ache, his lips soft against mine, his hands still cradling my face like I was something precious. When we finally broke apart, his forehead rested against mine. "Naomi," he breathed. "Are you sure? This isn't just grief, isn't just—" I'm sure. I was. Despite the timing, despite the circumstances, I was absolutely sure. I've been sure for weeks. I just didn't know how to say it. "We should wait. You're vulnerable right now, emotional." "I'm always going to be emotional about losing my mother," I interrupted. "That doesn't change what I feel for you. What I've been feeling." His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, wiping away a tear. "What do you feel?" "Safe," I said immediately. "Seen, valued," I took a shaky breath. "Loved, maybe." "Is that crazy?" "No." His voice was rough with emotion. "Because I feel it too. Have for weeks. Possibly since the alley. Since I saw you trying so hard to be brave while you fell apart. We barely know each other. We know the important things." He pulled back slightly, his pale eyes searching mine. "I know you're stronger than you believe, that you're kind even after someone tried to beat the kindness out of you, that you love completely, even when it costs you everything." His hand moved to rest over my heart. "I know what's here. That's enough." We left the nursing home as the sun rose, hand in hand, stepping into a future neither of us had planned but both of us wanted. The funeral was small. A few of my mother's friends from the nursing home, some distant relatives I barely remembered, Keisha, who flew in from Atlanta and cried when she saw me, whole and free, and Dmitri, standing slightly apart in his dark suit, a silent sentinel ensuring my safety even in grief. "He's intense," Keisha whispered during the reception. "But the way he looks at you—" She shook her head. "Girl, that man is gone for you." "Is it too soon?" I asked, voicing the fear that had been gnawing at me. "I just left Marcus. My mother just died. Maybe I'm just latching onto the first person who's shown me kindness." "Are you?" Keisha challenged. "Or are you finally free enough to choose what you actually want instead of what you think you should feel?" The question stayed with me as the weeks passed, as I settled deeper into my new life. Classes consumed my days, research and papers and rediscovering the intellectual passion Marcus had tried to kill. Evenings I spent with Dmitri, learning the man beneath the reputation. He was surprisingly well-read, his penthouse filled with books in multiple languages. He played chess with ruthless efficiency, but sulked when I occasionally beat him. He cooked, elaborate Russian dishes that he'd learned from his mother, measuring ingredients with the same precision he applied to everything else. And he was unfailingly patient with my boundaries, with the trauma that still occasionally surfaced. The first time he raised his voice, not at me but during a phone call with one of his associates, I'd flinched so hard I'd dropped my coffee cup. He'd ended the call immediately, his voice dropping to that dangerous softness as he cleaned up the broken ceramic. "I'm sorry," I'd said, trembling. "I know you weren't yelling at me, don't apologize." He'd cupped my face, his touch feather-light. "This is my fault. I should have taken the call in another room." "It's not your fault that I'm broken." "You're not broken." Fierce conviction in his voice. "You're healing." "There's a difference." Those moments when my past tried to intrude on my present, he never made me feel weak or damaged. He adjusted, learned, adapted his behavior to ensure I felt safe. The control he exercised wasn't over me, but over himself, over his environment, creating space where I could heal without fear. 3 months after the alley, I finished my master's degree. Dmitri threw me a party, the penthouse filled with classmates, with Alexei and the other security team members, with Keisha visiting from Atlanta, with people who'd become friends in my new life. He gave a toast that made me cry, talking about strength and resilience and the courage it takes to start over. That night, after everyone had left, after we'd cleaned up together in comfortable silence, I found him on the balcony, staring out at the city. "Thank you," I said, wrapping my arms around him from behind, "for everything. For saving me, for giving me my life back." He turned in my arms, his expression serious. "I didn't save you, Naomi, you saved yourself. I just provided resources. You provided hope. When I had nothing, when I'd given up, you showed me that there was still a way forward. You would have found it eventually. Maybe." I stood on my toes to kiss him softly. "But I'm glad I didn't have to find it alone." He pulled me closer, his arms wrapping around me with a possessiveness that would have terrified me months ago. Now it just felt safe, wanted, chosen. "I love you," he said simply. "I know it's complicated, know that we're complicated, but I need you to know that." "I love you too." The words came easily, naturally, without fear. Is that insane? To love the crime lord who found me in an alley? Probably. A smile tugged at his lips. But then, you're the librarian who trusted said crime lord with her life. We're both a little insane. Good insane or bad insane? The best kind of insane. He kissed me again, deeper this time, full of promise and possibility, the kind that builds something real from broken pieces. 6 months after the alley, I started working at a women's shelter, using my degree to develop programs for survivors of domestic violence. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was being funded by a man whose business operated outside the law, helping women escape the very kind of violence his world sometimes perpetuated. "Does it bother you?" I asked Dmitri one evening. "That I work with abuse survivors? Given what you do?" He considered the question seriously. "It reminds me why I have rules. Why some lines can't be crossed no matter what." He pulled me against his side on the couch. "And I'm proud of you. Turning your trauma into something that helps others, that takes real strength." "I've been thinking," I said slowly, "about maybe speaking publicly, telling my story. Not the details about you," I added quickly, "but about leaving, about finding resources, about rebuilding. If that's what you want, I support it. No hesitation, though we'll need to increase your security. Public speaking means exposure, and while Marcus has stayed away, making yourself visible might tempt him to stupidity. You'd let me do it anyway? Even knowing it increases the risk?" "Let you?" He raised an eyebrow. "Naomi, I don't let you do anything. You make your own choices. I just make sure you're safe while making them." The distinction mattered. With Marcus, every choice had required permission, negotiation, often sacrifice. With Dmitri, my autonomy was absolute, protected as fiercely as my physical safety. I gave my first talk on a rainy Tuesday appropriately enough. Standing in front of 50 women at the shelter, telling my story, I saw my past reflected in their eyes. The fear, the shame, the desperate hope that maybe, possibly, there was a way out. "You are not broken," I told them, echoing Dimitri's words to me. "You are surviving, and survival, that's the first step to living again." Afterward, a young woman approached me, her left eye swollen shut, her hands shaking. How did you do it? She whispered. How did you find the courage to leave? I thought about that night in the alley, about the phone call I'd almost didn't make, about the stranger who'd offered protection when I had nothing left. I realized that staying would kill me, I said honestly. Maybe not immediately, but eventually, and I decided I'd rather die trying to escape than die by staying. But where do you go? How do you survive? I gave her the shelter's information, the hotlines, the resources. But I also gave her something else. You find people who help you remember that you're worth saving. And then you start believing it yourself. She left with tears in her eyes and hope on her face. I watched her go, remembering that feeling, that first fragile belief that maybe I deserved better. You're good at this, Alexei said from his position by the door. He'd attended every speaking engagement, a silent guardian ensuring my safety. I'm just telling the truth. Truth is powerful, especially for those who've been living in lies. That night, Dmitri was waiting when I got home, dinner prepared, candles lit, his way of celebrating my success without making a fuss. We ate together, talking about my day, his day, the mundane details of lives intertwining. I've been thinking, he said as we finished dessert, about my business, about the transition you asked about when we first met. I set down my fork, giving him my full attention. I've been moving assets into legitimate enterprises for years, he continued. Real estate, investments, import-export, that's actually just import-export. But there are still elements, obligations, connections that tie me to the old ways. And I'm accelerating the timeline. 2 years, maybe 3, and I'll be clean. Legitimate. The kind of man you don't have to make excuses. 4. I don't make excuses for you. Now. You shouldn't have to choose between loving me and being ashamed of what I do. I reached across the table to take his hand. I'm not ashamed. I understand the complexity, but if you want to transition, if that's what you want, I'll support you. It's what I want. His eyes met mine with absolute certainty. I want to build a life with you, Naomi. A real one, without shadows, without danger. I want to be someone Emma, if we have children, can be proud of. The casual mention of children, of a future so concrete and real, made my heart skip. Children? If you want them. If you want that with me. Vulnerability flickered across his face. I know we haven't discussed. Yes. Yes? Yes to children. Yes to a future. Yes to building something together. I smiled. Yes to all of it, Dmitri. He stood, pulling me to my feet and into his arms. I love you, he murmured against my hair. My brave, beautiful Naomi, you survived hell and came out stronger. I'm humbled every day that you chose me. You saved me. No. He pulled back to meet my eyes. You saved yourself. I just made sure you stayed safe while you did it. Maybe he was right. Maybe I had saved myself. That night when I decided living in fear was worse than dying free. But he'd been the safety net, the protection that allowed me to take the risk. 1 year after the alley, Marcus was found dead in his apartment. Drug overdose, the police said. No foul play suspected. His family, aware of their own vulnerabilities thanks to Dmitri's carefully gathered evidence, buried him quickly and quietly. I felt nothing when I heard. No grief, no satisfaction, no vindication, just the closing of a chapter, the final severing of a tie that had already lost its power to hurt me. Are you okay? Dmitri asked, watching me carefully. I'm free, I said simply. Completely free. He can't hurt me now, even if he wanted to. He never would have gotten close enough. A statement of fact, not a boast. I know. But there's something different about knowing he's gone. Not because I wanted him dead, I added quickly, but because it means that chapter is really over. Dmitri pulled me close, his chin resting on top of my head. What chapter begins now? I thought about the question, about the life I'd built from nothing, about the work I loved, about the man who'd shown me that protection didn't have to mean possession. The one where I'm not defined by what I survived, I said. Where I'm just Naomi, living, loving, helping others, Building something meaningful. That sounds like a good chapter. The best one yet. 2 years after the alley, Dmitri proposed. Not with grand gestures or public displays, but quietly, in the apartment where he'd first brought me, where I'd slowly rebuilt myself into someone stronger than I'd been before Marcus broke me. "Marry me," he said simply, producing a ring that was beautiful but not ostentatious. Not because you need my protection, not because you owe me anything, but because we choose each other. Every day we choose each other. I said yes. The wedding was small, intimate, held in the garden of a venue Dmitri owned. Keisha was my maid of honor. Alexei stood as Dmitri's best man. The people who mattered, who'd been part of my journey from broken to whole, filled the chairs. As we exchanged vows, I thought about that rainy night in the alley, about the woman I'd been, terrified and alone. I thought about the man who'd found me, who'd seen worth in me when I couldn't see it in myself. "I promise to honor you," Dmitri said, his pale eyes locked on mine. "To protect you without imprisoning you, to love you without owning you, to build a life with you where your choices are always your own." "I promise to trust you," I replied, tears streaming down my face. "To let you love me without fear, to build a life with you where we're partners, equals, choosing each other every single day." When he kissed me, sealing our promises, I tasted salt from our shared tears and hope for our shared future. 5 years after the alley, I stood in the nursery of our home, a brownstone Dmitri had bought and renovated to my specifications, watching our daughter sleep. Elena, named for the doctor who'd patched me up that first night, had Dmitri's pale eyes and my dark skin, a perfect blend of our combined histories. "She's beautiful," Dmitri whispered, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Just like her mother." "She's fierce," I corrected. "Watch her when she doesn't get her way. Pure determination." "Also like her mother." I leaned back against his chest, marveling at how different this felt from those early days. The fear was gone, replaced by security, love, partnership. Dmitri had made good on his promise, transitioning his business into legitimate enterprises. The dangerous elements of his past were truly past now, managed by others, distant enough that they didn't touch our daily lives. "Do you ever think about that night?" I asked softly. "In the alley? Every day." His arms tightened around me. "I think about what would have happened if I hadn't been checking the cameras. If you'd been somewhere else, with someone else. I would have survived somehow." "I know you would have. You're a survivor, Naomi. That's who you are at your core." He turned me to face him. "But I'm grateful I got to be part of your survival, that you let me walk beside you while you rebuilt yourself. You did more than walk beside me. You gave me the tools, the safety, the space to become who I was meant to be." "Who you always were," he corrected. "Williams tried to destroy that person, but she was always there, waiting to emerge." I kissed him softly, this man who'd kept every promise, who'd shown me that love could be gentle, even when power was absolute, who'd protected me without owning me. "Thank you," I whispered against his lips. "For what?" "For seeing me when I couldn't see myself, for believing in me when I'd stopped believing, for keeping me safe while I learned to be strong again. Naomi." He cupped my face in his hands. "You were always strong. I just made sure no one could hurt you while you remembered that." In the nursery, Elena stirred, making the small sounds that meant she'd wake soon. We moved together to her crib, two people who'd found each other in darkness and built a life in the light. "Who are you hiding from?" He'd asked that night in the alley. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was living, loving, thriving. The woman Marcus had tried to destroy was gone, replaced by someone stronger. Someone who'd learned that surviving wasn't the same as living, but it was a necessary first step. And the man feared by all, the one they called dangerous, ruthless, unforgiving, he'd kept his word. No one had touched me again. No one had dared. Because monsters, I'd learned, could also be protectors. And sometimes, just sometimes, the most dangerous man in the room was the safest person to trust with your heart.